we'll go through this now, mow it off. So these poor light soils are really good for Specie Rich Grassland. And if we leave this to dry out at all, when it gets raked, you're just going to be knocking seed out. I'd rather cover the ground twice and have seed distributed everywhere than start putting too much out and running short. So, just got to site now. I'm on the 215 with the Easy Cut 280. Paul's come up here on the 185 with the Kuhn rake behind. And this evening's mission is to mow this and row it up ready for tomorrow. So this is a meadow that's been restored, pretty light on grass, but very high in botanics. So we've got the knapweed now, which is well in seed. You can see there. Knapweed, for those of you who don't know, got a little purple flower, it's quite pretty. We've got red clover in here, which is now all well to seed. You can see the seed in there. So the Buffalo trefoil, it's a bit later than the rest of them. You see how the seed pods are here now? There's still some flowers, but there's some pods. Some of the pods are still quite green, but lower down the plant there are riper pods. You've just got to catch this sort of job just at the right time when you're getting a balance of as much as you possibly can. But obviously some of the later seeding species will be a bit lighter on in the mix that we harvest. There's loads of other stuff in here, I can't find any at the moment, but we've got quite a lot of yellow rattle in places. Oh yeah, some yellow rattle here, you see. That's well through to seed now. So we'll go through this now, mow it off, row it up, but tomorrow morning we're going to pick it up with a baler, we're going to chop it, eject the bales unwrapped, and then put those straight into the spreader so we can distribute all this as green hay over that field that we prepped in one of the previous episodes. There's loads of yellow rattle here. So along with this, all this wildflower seed that we can harvest from here, we're also going to top it up with some bush harvested seed to make sure that field's as rich as we can possibly make it. So I've just been round now picking up tubexes. So there's a lot of the woodland planting was done round here and was done in tubes. And if you look at this, they're not an ideal solution for high public access areas. A lot of dog walking. Look at teeth marks. Damn dogs are ripping the tubexes off and running around with them and chewing them and playing with them. They're littered all over the site. It's not ideal. We'll crack on with the mower and get this knocked off. It won't take long at all. A bit of funny noise coming from the mower. That's not a good start. I think that the condition of times are just catching on the swath boards there. We just bent the swath boards up a bit because they had bent downwards. Just catching on the swath board. Just the slightest bit. Been a horrible noise. That's better, isn't it? Can't listen to that for the next hour. So the idea of mowing this tonight and swathing it up is to make sure we're off to a flower in the morning, because what we don't want to do is leave this stuff hanging around. When we collect it tomorrow, it wants getting into the spreaders and getting out on site as soon as possible so it doesn't heat up. If it heats up too much, then obviously it'll obviously reduce the viability of the seed. So we mow it tonight, bring it into a swath. It'll stay cool overnight. We forecast a little bit of rain tomorrow, drizzle, which is ideal. We don't want this to dry out anymore and then start shedding more and more of its seed. We want as much seed in the swath as we can possibly get. So by cutting it and swathing it tonight, a bit of drizzle tomorrow, when we come to pick it up with the baler, we'll get as much of the seed retained as possible. Right, we're finished mowing that. It's not a terrible on it, it's quite short. The reason these wildflowers do well on poor soils, and you get a limited amount of vegetation off them, is because the flowers are like deep rooted and have got the ability to get nutrient and get moisture from low down. If you've got a real fertile soil, then the grass species generally dominate. So these poor light soils are really good for Specie Rich Grassland. Paul's just raking in the last little pass on this piece. Just gently flicking that together now, whilst it's just freshly being mown, means we're maximising the most seed we can in the swath. And if we leave this to dry out at all, when it gets raked, you're just going to be knocking seed out. The nice thing is, by taking these risings off, we're reducing the nutrient load on the site, so it's impoverishing the soil more because it's not got that nutrient going back into it. Yes, by not building up that nutrient load, the grasses can't dominate the sward, and the wildflowers have got a chance to get through. So by taking this off as effectively a hay crop is really positive for the site's management, and fantastically we get a load of great seed to restore another meadow with. It's kind of a win-win. So the site we're on's right on the urban fringe. It's got a load of public access on here. But to be fair, it's quite tidy. Some of the sites that we work like this, you find a lot of dog fouling and litter, but credit to this site, it's really clean. So that's great for local residents that are respecting it and looking after it. Dead nice. You can see we've got a light board missing. Paul had a little bit of a faux pas with a hedge a couple of weeks ago. I just need to weld that bar back on. Just seen that now when I've picked the mower up. It's a great big pile of seed here. What we'll do is we'll leave all that where it is, and then tomorrow we can collect that up. There's a heck of a lot of seed there. So the time for something a little bit different, yeah, a little bit similar. Kuhn baler behind the 185, and what we're doing, this field that you've just seen us mowing and Paul raking up, we've just baled it, but we've not netted it. So I've got the knives in the baler, so we're chopping it short, and we're ejecting the bales without any net on them. You see this is all nicely chopped up short now. So the bales are falling apart because we're chucking them out not netted. We're ejecting the bales when it gets to 80% in the chamber. We're not putting full pressure onto the bales to form them properly. We want this stuff to be loose. All chopped, so it's nice and short, it's going to fall apart. They splodge out, a little bit falls apart as we pull forward. And then what we're going to do is we've got the JCB telehandler down here and the muck grab. We're going to pick these bales up. Paul's brought over 215 with the Ktwo 1200 spreader. So the chopped bales are going to get shaken into the spreader, and then we're going to hot foot it over to the field that you'll seen either in this video or previous video, where I'm out with the Bednar discs and the new Kuhn power harrow, where we've prepped the field. So we're going to put this green hay, as it's known in environmental terms, which is basically freshly cut grass with a load of seed in it, through the spreader, distribute it really finely over the field, and we're using that as a way of reseeding the field with all these different botanics in it. So a little bit different, but it's really successful. We've done this in various ways with direct cuts, like double chops, cutting and collecting it into the spreaders, variety of ways, but we thought this year we're going to try it just with the baler unwrapped, and I think this will is quite an efficient way of picking it up. And the old double chop thing dragging alongside, it's kind of a bit of a pain, not very easy to send into the trailers properly. So we're going to give this a go instead. The thing now is speed is of the essence. We don't want this to get hot. The longer this is left tight in a bale, the quicker it's going to heat up. The hotter it gets, the less viable any of the seed is. So that's why we've done it on a damp, overcast day. In fact, it rained on it this morning, which is even better because it's nice and damp, keeping it cool. We confused the baler a little bit when I opened the door. I had it on manual as opposed to auto, so it wouldn't net. And then when I opened the door to eject the bale, it kind of confused the cycle a little bit, so it just started putting a little bit of net on. So knocked the PTO off pretty quickly and reset it so that it stopped netting, but there's a little bit of net in there. So Paul's just got up into the spreader now, just retrieving a bit of that net that you might have just seen. In hindsight, what we should have perhaps done is taken the net off the baler completely, but then it would probably scream at me all the way through that there's no net on there, so we're in a bit of a no-win situation, I think. If we drop a little bit as we go, we can just whiz the baler back over that and we'll pick it up again. You can see how that's really quite loose, gives it a little bit of a shape. If we bail that to full capacity of the baler, then it'll really tighten up and then it'll be much more difficult to get through the spreader. As far as seed harvesting goes, this is probably the most efficient way of getting the maximum yield of seed off the field. You don't want to do this too often on a site, you know, maybe once every 3 years, because it is very efficient at taking seed. Obviously, the yellow rattle being the predominant annual in here we're concerned about, that will have already dropped a fair proportion of its seed out already, and most of the other species in here are perennials, so it's not, you know, it's not that disadvantageous to this donor site by removing the material in such an efficient manner. So now Paul's got most of that material, he can move both machines out of the way. I'll run over this area of the baler and we can pick up what is left. And then we'll bale the other side of the field. So we've been working on these meadow restorations for well over 10 years now. We've done a combination of seed harvesting, cleaning that seed, and then sowing that out with our air seeder or broadcasting. Green hay projects we've been doing for a similar period of time. As I say, normally with a double chop machine, but found this is a really nice way of doing it. It saves dragging that double chop tackle, which isn't the nicest to travel on the road around the countryside, so yeah, it works pretty well. The least efficiency of this system means that, you know, you're moving so much bulk material. So when we're seed harvesting, you're just collecting the seed off the field, cleaning and that operation to do afterwards. You're not transferring the bulk. With this you are moving a bulk material, but it is a really good way of getting the maximum seed yield potential out of a small site. What's important to note as well, whilst, you know, there's lots of packet mix available, stuff off the shelf, seed mixes that you can buy to increase the diversity of your swards and that grassland restoration. What we're doing is harvesting local seed from local sites, which has got a local provenance. So the species that we're picking up in the plant and the seeds we're picking up from the species we're collecting from are all native to the Cheshire Seed Bank. So we're not importing seed from elsewhere in the country or Europe. It's local seed going onto local sites. So it's quite a purist method of meadow restoration, and I think that's quite important for sites that are going to remain in this species diverse meadow scenario for a long time. If we can preserve the local seed stocks, then that's kind of quite a special thing to have. We've got that local provenance for future generations. Now, this work's only being carried out on a small number of sites across the county each year. So we'll just eject one of the bales now. It's got up to about 80%. The baler's going to play hell with me because it's ejecting, not netted. Just go down to the field now with the green hay. Paul's going to spread this out. We're just trying to get Paul now to get the bed speed about right and the forward speed, because obviously we've got so little of this material, we just want to spread it nice and thin over the field. Yeah, there we go. So we're just trying to get it so it's a real thin layer across the field. Now the spread pattern we're getting with so little material coming out and the material being so light is probably around about 3 metres. So we just updated it now to 3 metre spaces. Paul's going to go up and down alternate guidance lines, so we'll spread 3 metre width, leave a 3 metres not spread as we go across the field, and that at least we get some coverage across the whole of this field, because we haven't got a lot of material to be able to distribute over here. And if we do manage to get across the field on alternate lines, then we can fill in between. So it's kind of like seeding, but not as you know it. You can see here now material we're sending out of here, and the material, it's all nice and cool still. So knapweed. It's not like spreading manure where you've got quite dense material that spreads a long way. This is obviously so light and fluffy that it won't spread it a long way. And we'll get it thicker in the bands. You can see there now he's missed a line out. If we've got enough material for the next load, we can fill that in. But even if we don't manage to achieve that and we've just got density, a gap, and then density of seed, over the next couple of seasons when it's mown and tedded for hay, that'll distribute the seeds further across the field to fill it in across. So as long as we're getting some seed bank into here, it will just improve year on year going forward. So it's a different way of seeding, isn't it? Any of you that are into sort of conservation, land management, you know, be familiar with this technique. Others, it may be a bit of a new thing for you. So if you've got any questions, please put them in the comments. The biggest key to achieving this successfully is time. Like, there's a clump here that's just come out of the spreader. Time is of the essence with this sort of project. Like, that's still cold. It's not warmed up at all. You've got to get the material from the donor site to the receptor site as quickly as possible. The moment this starts heating up, you're losing viability of seed. There's eyebright, good indicator species. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what the results are of this next year. I think what we may just do with this is just run the power harrow over it, really, really shallow, just to distribute it where there's a few clumps from the spreader. That'll just average it out a little bit more as well over the site. It's the kind of thing, really, if there's only one of you, because you've got such a limited amount of material off the donor sites, unless there's two of you in the field just to look at how it's coming out the back of the spreader, you can soon waste a lot of material in one place of the field and then not get the coverage. It's handy having there's two of us here so that we can just make sure that we've got about the right amount of material coming out that's going to cover the field. If you're doing it on your own, then having a camera on the back of the spreader would be kind of handy so that you can just sort of see how much material you're sending out. The last thing you want to do is engage the PTO, open the back door, find that your bed speed's too quick and you've emptied half the spreader in the first two passes, or the first pass, because once you've chucked out the back of there, there's no going back. And you can't go to the shops and buy more of this. You know, it's important to get that spread pattern correct from the get-go. If you've got a huge donor site and there's more material available, obviously, then it's not as critical. We can see the benefit of having the knives in the baler and chopping that material. What's coming out is really nice and short, so it's distributing quite well and evenly. If we hadn't had the knives in and got longer material, then you'd not be able to spread it quite as evenly as we are doing. Yeah, so once we've finished spreading on here, we're going to top it up with a little bit of broadcasted seed. We're going to bring a little bit more yellow rattle into it, a few different finer grasses. So we're doing that probably next week. I think that seed's being harvested. We'll get that on top of here as well. We'll give this a little light power harrowing in just to mix that into the top surface of the soil, and then we'll roll it down with a Cambridge roller again. You can see some of the cocksfoot grasses that we've got in here. They'll stay alive and viable so that we'll get back to a green cover quickly going into this autumn. We'll get germination this autumn and going into spring of everything we're putting on here now. And then hopefully next year this will be a really diverse sward which we'll be taking hay cuts off around about this time of year, mid-July onwards. There'll be one cut and then we'll probably autumn graze. It's harder than you realise to try and distribute what will only be 2 or 3 spreader loads over 6 hectares. You've not got a lot of margin for error. I'd rather cover the ground twice and have seed distributed everywhere than start putting too much out and running short. So this is going really well. The bed's hardly moving backwards, you see. We just really turn the hydraulic pressure down on that spool valve that's moving the bed, so it's just creeping back very, very slowly. I think it's really quite important as well when we're doing these green hay projects and meadow restorations is managing the surrounding weeds. So because we're cultivating now right in the middle of a lot of the weeds setting the seed and dispersing the seed, the docks and thistles, etc., and ragwort. Normally if we're cultivating and doing a reseeder maybe in September, they'd have all shed their seeds and we'd be burning off, particularly with glyphosate, we'd be reducing the viability of those weed seeds. But because we're doing this now in end of July, all those weed seeds are available and we've got a load of bare soil around us. So if you're not careful, you can introduce a hell of a lot of weed into the meadow that you're trying to restore. So Luke and Andy came down on Friday and they've done a cracking job. So they've gone all round this perimeter where the young woodland planting is, and they've cut all the docks. You'll see how the docks have been snipped off, all the seed heads. So they've taken all those seed heads down and then bagged them up and taken those away to the bonfire so that we haven't got all that weed potential to spread into the field. What we'll do then is flail mow this verge around the outside, and then when the docks spring back again later in September, we'll come around and spot spray and just make sure we remove any more of those so they're not a problem for next year. And wherever there was any creeping thistle in these outsides, before the seed got viable into that stage where it's going to start blowing away, they've trimmed all that down to ground level, and they'll come back into those spots and spot spray those as well. So it's kind of really important to think about your prevailing winds and what's boundarying the site to make sure you've not got great big weed burden that's going to blow straight across the field into your freshly cultivated ground, because obviously that's a great seedbed for all that weed to establish. So getting your perimeters and neighbouring land clean is as equally important as cleaning up the ground you're working. So with that level of attention to detail, I'm not anticipating a massive weed burden coming back onto this field. But what we will be doing next spring is checking it and going through when we can see if we see any young dots coming, and we'll spot spray just to make sure that we get a nice clean sward. Because obviously we've got nothing we can boom spray on here now because we've got such diversity in the mix. So it's all going to be spot spraying going forward for any weed control. You can just see a slight green haze where he's already spread, but it's not terribly dramatic. It's not that obvious when you're in the tractor where you have spread, so having that GPS on and the guidance lines is really quite good, because it's giving confidence that we are getting that even spread pattern everywhere. We'll take a quick look at some of this stuff that's just spread. So this is getting to the end of the spreader now. We'll just check the temperature on here. Yeah, that's still completely cold to the touch. That's fantastic. We carry out this environmental contracting service all over Cheshire and surrounding counties. I think over the sort of decade or so we've been doing it, one of the key learnings that we've had is being organised, especially on the green hay projects. Obviously the ground can all be pre-prepared, but it's kind of taking that sort of NASA HACCP control sort of system, sort of hazard analysis system, and thinking about that a little bit in what you're doing. It sounds a bit dramatic, but the moment we cut the grass and we've swathed it together, it's got the potential to start warming up or drying out and dropping seed. So making sure, depending on what you're chopping it and collecting it with, obviously maintenance of the machinery is key, the balers and stuff, all the gear that's being used, been right on top of it so that nothing's going to break down, but also having a backup plan. You only get one opportunity a year off your donor sites, and you really only want to be taking that off every 3 years. So if we mess up today and the seed's not viable, then you're scuppered. So having extra spreaders on hand, extra handles on hand to be able to dig spreaders out if you needed to be able to get that material done. Once you start the process, times are the key, so the material's not getting hot and losing that seed viability. So we pride ourselves as Ktwo in contracting this service to make sure we've always got a backup plan so that we don't get failures, because that's massively frustrating for the clients and for ourselves if we end up spoiling this crop. So that's gone really well. Paul's just finished now with that load. We're going to head back to the field, bale some more, bring that back and get it spread that on the field as well.